Hey there, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Coleman with the Smartcat team. Thank you for joining us for our webinar, an interactive demo on continuous website localization using Smartcat AI. And today's session has a specific focus on Adobe Experience Manager, Sitecore, and WordPress. These make up the majority of the platforms that are used for website management today. So we're really excited to be able to not just talk about them, but to actually demo these live with Smartcat for you. I'm joined today by Laura from our solutions team and Dimitri from the product team. So you're going to be in really good hands. This is a hands-on, real live detailed session intended to give you more information on how to actually use the platform. So feel free to ask any questions and we will be happy to answer those. Speaking of questions, there is a Q&A section at the bottom of your screen in most cases. Use that to submit your questions and we'll get to those at the end of the session. We hopefully will be able to answer all of your questions, but if we don't get to all of them, don't worry. This entire session is being recorded and we'll share the recording as well as the Q&A transcript with you after the fact. So we're just going to wait another minute or so while more people join. While we're waiting though, we'd love to learn just a little bit more about you. So if you wouldn't mind in the chat section, drop in where you're located, what the weather is like, and what platform you use for managing your website today. This information is confidential. Don't worry, we're not going to use it against you. All right, so if you look on the bottom of your screen, or in some cases the top of your screen, you'll see that chat button. And again, for questions, next to that, you'll see a Q&A section. So that will be used for submitting questions that will go into the queue. And it's really helpful for us to use the Q&A section because then it gets into a backlog that Dimitri and Laura can answer, or we can answer after the fact from the transcript. So again, we're going to get started in just about another 30 seconds. My name is Coleman. I'm on the marketing team here at Smartcat. Most of this event is going to be led by Laura from our solutions team. And we have Dimitri on hand to also address any technical questions that you may have. So with that, let's get moving. Here's our agenda for today's session. First of all, we wanted to set a little bit of context about why localization matters. Obviously, you're here, you're on a Smartcat session, so you understand something about localization and the need for it within your own platform, your own web environment. But the statistics around website translation are pretty compelling, so we wanted to cover off on that quickly. And then we're going to get right into a live demo of Smartcat in use with Adobe Experience Manager. Depending on time and the number of questions we have, we'll probably also do a live session of WordPress. And then we're going to just give you a quick look at Sitecore. And then we'll get on to Q&A. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Laura, and she's going to give us a little more detail on why translation matters.
Thanks, Coleman, and hi, everybody. Great to be here today. A little bit of background on myself. I've been in the localization industry for quite some time, so website translation is something that I've been involved in for a lot of my career. I've seen it done in a lot of different ways, shall we say. So I thought we'd start off with just a bit of a brief introduction to why translation matters, which many of you probably already know, which is why you're here. But this particular research from CSA, a survey they did in 2020, was quite illustrative, really. And as you can see from the results on the screen, we've got a huge percentage of people, 65%, who do prefer content in their own language. And a significant percentage as well, 40%, who will not purchase from a website in another language. So this research has been promoted as can't read, won't buy. So the implications of that for e-commerce in particular are quite important, but also for all other business type websites, right? Because you have a conversion goal in mind ultimately for that website. So you want to serve all your customers regardless of what language they speak. So yeah, just to highlight some high level figures there of why translation matters to your customers, first of all. Yeah, I think we can move on to the next slide, which has some considerations. Yeah. So we have some key translation considerations here, some of which you might have thought of, some of which might not have occurred to you. So firstly, when we speak about things like languages, regions, and adaptation, something to consider is whether you just want a multilingual site or whether you would need a multi-regional site. So just to give a bit of an idea what that would look like, a product company who ships both in the US and in Canada, for example, might have different sites targeting those two markets. So that would be an example of a multi-regional site. They can also be both multi-regional and multilingual. So for example, for Canada, you might have that Canada site in both French and English, for example. So that just depends on the kind of audience that you're targeting and the kind of business that you operate in. And then other considerations in relation to adaptation is things like, would you use local pricing? Is there any specific local content that you'd need to use? Would you need to adapt that content to take into account particular cultural or regional specifics of the target market? So from the linguistic point of view, quite a bit to consider there right off the bat. And then obviously other considerations that we have with this type of project, things like timing. So would it make more sense to do a coordinated release in all languages? Sometimes if you're launching a particular product, you want a coordinated release across all markets, and timing everything accordingly is a consideration. Or would a rolling release work better, you know, to get those core languages out first and then maybe go out into less important languages for your business? And then does the project allow enough time to achieve the end result that you're looking for? Other considerations are budgetary. So would you need to translate your entire site, all of the content, or would it be more appropriate to translate particular subsections that might be relevant for that target market? Similarly, the approach for translation as well. And we'll touch on this a little bit more later on, but you can follow a different approach for different types of content, and that's something that we commonly see in the industry. So typically for, shall we say, lower impact type content that's internal or not necessarily client facing, we might be happy with AI only translation for that, and just trust the AI to produce that translated content. At the opposite end of the scale, for something that's really high impact, you know, a marketing landing page that we're using to drive interest in one of our new key features, something like that, you would probably want an expert human reviewer to review that content. So that's the more high impact end of the scale. And then in between, you know, that's a spectrum. So we can leverage various AI and linguistic resources as well as the human touch to have a combined AI human workflow there. So language priority, that's another thing that you might like to consider. Which languages are your core markets? Which ones would be, it makes sense to prioritize? And then we move on to who will actually do the work, which is another important consideration. Lots of people like to use in-house resources, in-house multilingual resources to do that sort of work, which is a great option as they're familiar with your business, but there can be a bit of an opportunity cost to that in terms of time taken away from their day role. There are also professional linguists, which can be a great option to scale quickly as well, particularly if you have a lot of content to translate. And at Smartcat, we have a marketplace of over 500,000 linguists that we can leverage for that outsourced work as well. And it's important to check that the necessary skills are in place there, that whoever's doing the work has got experience with website translation, they're experienced in the field, and obviously the language skills are there and they've got all the relevant resources to do a good job. So just some things to consider. And with that, I think we can move on to the next slide, which is about the workflows. So as I just touched on, we find that there are different approaches that clients tend to take depending on the impact of the content and budget, time concerns, and basically a combination of the factors that we've just looked at. So the first workflow would be a pure AI translation. This is when, we send the source content to the AI engine and it just returns the target translation there. And that's the simplest and quickest workflow and at the lower end of the scale. As we move up the scale slightly, we have AI translation plus AI learning. So that's when we leverage those linguistic assets, the translation memories, the glossaries, the AI learning element of the platform to improve the initial AI translation output and get that a little bit closer to that final result that you're looking for. And then at the other end of the scale, for that high impact content, that business critical content that you really want to be spot on and polished, that's when the AI translation plus the AI learning and then the AI human workflows together can make that polished content perfect then. So that's it for a quick overview of why translation is important and a few things that you might want to consider. And with that, I will go ahead and share my screen and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of how it actually works. Okay, there we go. Okay, hopefully that's showing okay for everybody. What you should see here is this is the start page of Adobe Experience Manager. If you're familiar with this platform, your instance will probably look similar to mine. And the plugin is installed directly within Adobe Experience Manager. So the process for that, I won't go through it in too much detail because if you work on the Adobe Experience Manager side, it's probably something you're familiar with. But within the tools section, you can install packages from here. So you would install the package that way. And then once you have that installed, we go to the configuration part. So in terms of the configuration, I've gone into the wrong section here. There we go. We have the Translation Cloud Services item here. So once we click into that, this is where we keep the configuration for this plugin. So this would be an initial setup item, and then once it's done, it's saved as the default. So if I just look in here, we can see I have my Smartcat connector, and I can configure the settings of this according to my needs. You can also see here that we have a few. You see I have Smartcat 1, Smartcat 2, and Smartcat 3 here. This allows us to support different workflows. So as we've just discussed, you might want to follow a different workflow for your lower impact content, for your key business critical content. And with these different configurations, we can have a different profile for that content and treat it differently depending on our needs. So that's just to touch on the configuration. Just to bob into this one, we can see here that we can choose a template here. By default, the workflow that we tend to find most of our clients follow is that AI translation followed by the human post editing. But if there are any sort of custom workflows applicable to your workflow, you can have the custom templates. You can see I've got a few in there already. So once all the settings are configured, we can go ahead and start our translation. So to do that, we work from the sites tree. And if you're familiar with Adobe Experience Manager, this will be a familiar environment for you. So as you can see here, we have the hierarchy structure of the content here, and I can navigate to the content I want to translate. So in this case, I have my English versions in here, and I'll just select a couple of pages in this instance, and we'll translate those. So once I've selected those pages that I'd like to translate, I click the Create up here, and I create a language copy. This creates the duplicate that we will translate in this instance. So once I do that, you can see I move on to this page where I have a list of the pages I've selected, and I can choose here whether I include any subpages or not. If I want to add any content to the project at this stage, I can add it here. But if I'm happy and I want to go ahead and translate these pages, I simply select the ones I want and go ahead to next. Once I get here, I'm just going to add my own configuration in there because I have a custom one. And then we can choose the target languages that we want to translate this into. So let's maybe do French, and we can choose multiple in here. So let's get Portuguese as well. Excellent. So once we've chosen the languages and we have the correct configuration that we need for our workflow, we can go ahead and click Next. And at this point, we can choose whether to create a translation project, multi-language project, or add to an existing project. In this case, I've got 2 languages. I'm going to create a multi-language translation project, and I will just give it a name. So, and once I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and click Create. And now I get this success message saying that the language copies have been added to the translation project. I can now click on Open. And this will take me into my AEM projects screen. And you can see here it's created a folder for the project I just created. And within that folder, we have a project which contains our translation. So as we can see here, translation in progress at the top, committed for translation here. If I refresh that, that should update itself in a moment. But that means this content has now been sent over to the Smartcat platform for translation. So what we'll do at this stage is we'll jump into Smartcat and have a look at how that appears. So for those who haven't seen Smartcat before, this is our Smartcat homepage. We have the navigation tiles up here and the main navigation down at the bottom. What I'm going to do in this case is go into my projects list. I have quite a few projects in here. But we can see that the projects that we've just created, the Portuguese and the French, are showing here at the top now. So if we just go into this project. Okay, so we can see in this case that AI translation is 100% completed. That's that automated translation done by Smartcat AI. So that stage is completed. We can also see here that our editing stage is partially completed as well. The reason for that is because the content that we're translating, we've translated similar content to that in the past. So because of that, Smartcat has leveraged that previous content and populated it into this project, so we don't have to redo that work. So the only thing the reviewer will need to do is to finish the rest of this project that isn't yet completed, the 40%. So as we can see that there, we have a couple of options at this point. If we want to invite a colleague to work on this, or we want to have a freelancer work on this, we can click the Inviting Tasks button. and we can invite anyone we like to collaborate with us on this project. That's also something that can be automated as well, so we don't have to manually send those invites every time. We can automate that and have that done automatically. We can also see here that Smartcat AI is recommending some suppliers from the marketplace for us. Francois here has got good ratings, and he's worked on similar content to this in the past. So he might be a good match if we want a freelancer to work on this project. So without further ado, we can pop into the editor and see how that editing experience would look for the reviewers. So if I click that here, what we get in here is a nice bilingual layout. We have the source on this side, and we have the target, the translation on this side. As you can see, some of these already have a green tick and a TM 102 here with a percentage match. This means they match some content that we translated previously, as you can see here in the top right. So there are a number of features in here that make the editing experience easier, faster, some things that we can leverage to speed that up for reviewers. But basically the process is to make any edits that are required, click the tick and confirm the segment, and that then commits that translation to the memory to be reused again in future. So on this occasion, I'm just going to confirm all these segments. And I'm going to hit done for this document. Now, when you're working with AEM content, you will likely find that there are several different files here. Because of the modular nature of AEM, you will have the content fragments and any other relevant content that's embedded within that file. So we can do the same thing. We can confirm all the segments here. And already done. We translated all of this one previously. Excellent. So now that is confirmed, we can go back to our project, and we can view those completed translations. So that was the French that we just did. So let us go in here. Okay, and we see here, ready for review here. So if I select this page, I can click Preview in Sites. And that's going to take me into the French version of this page, as you can see here. And we have our translated content from Smartcat showing up in here. So that's the simple flow of how it works. As I said, with the different configurations that we allow, there's quite a lot of support for automation in there as well. So we can automate things like the linguistic assets to be used, and any invitees who need to collaborate on the project. That's all things that can be automated. So essentially it's send the content to Smartcat, everything else takes care of itself, basically. Without further ado, we can also move on to having a look at WordPress. It works in quite a similar way. Let's switch over to the WordPress dashboard. Okay. So the WordPress integration is also a plugin driven. It's in the WordPress plugin repository. Again, installed in a very similar way to how you would install any other third-party plugin to WordPress, so I won't go into that in too much detail. What I will mention is that our plugin is supported by WPML, which is a leading third-party plugin for providing the multilingual functionality to WordPress. And the reason we use that is because it's very well supported and very well used throughout the WordPress community. So it's quite a robust solution to use for multilingual WordPress sites. So with WPML installed, that would be where you configure the languages that are available on the site. Any languages that you want your site to be translated into, they would be added in here. Our Smartcat plugin appears here, and we can go ahead and translate some content and have a look how that looks. So if I first of all go into my posts list, you will see that I have the available languages showing here. These are the languages that have been added in my instance, and that I have this new post that I've not translated into any languages yet. So let's just open this, and we will translate it. Okay. So the Smartcat plugin is found here in the sidebar. And we can choose the languages that we'd like to translate this post into. So if I choose French and German, for example, again, we can choose the workflow that we want to use for this content. AI translation only if it's maybe lower impact, internal, AI translation and human review, or if you want to go with the full manual translation with a human working from scratch, that's also supported in here. So in this case, again, I'll do the AI translation and human review, which tends to be our most popular workflow. And here we have the option whether we create a new Smartcat project or whether we add the content to an existing project. In this case, I'll go ahead and create a new project. If a deadline applies, for example, I need this by next Tuesday, you can add that in there. And if there are any relevant instructions, you can also add a comment here. And once we've done that, we can go ahead and send to Smartcat, and that will then send this content over for translation. Once that's done, you can see that we get the progress indicator in here. We can see what's happening with that content. We also have a direct link here to open the Smartcat project and to pull the content back. So if I just click that link to open the Smartcat project, you'll see a very similar interface to what we were just looking at, our same project interface. And as you can see, it's currently just finishing off running the automated translation for this content. So again, I can open this in the editor. We have the same editing environment, the same ability to invite people to work on this content, and the same automation options here. And again, you know, the same applies. We would confirm the segments, make any edits that are required, and then we can pull the content back to WordPress. So again, once this content is confirmed, this will be saved in our translation memory, so we can leverage this content in future, and we won't have to repeat any of those edits. So yeah, now that that's completed, we can go back to WordPress, and we can get from Smartcat, which will import those translations there. So what we can then do is we can go to edit in WordPress from here, or we can of course switch the language switcher from the top, but we can go into the French version of that page here. So now we see the page in French translated there, and perfect. Obviously, it's not always ideal to do this on a per post basis, so we can also do this in bulk. So if I go back to my all posts list, I can select, back to English, I can select one or more posts from here, And I can use the bulk actions here to translate these posts without directly navigating into each one. Works in a very similar way to the sidebar. You choose the languages that you want to translate into, you choose the relevant workflow stage, and then you go ahead and send that to Smartcat. Another thing to call attention to here is the translation requests dashboard. This gives you an ability to have an overall view of all your projects directly from the WordPress dashboard. So you can see the progress of all of these projects. You can see where they're up to. We can get the translations directly from here. We can dig into the details of the translation request. If we want to, for example, add another language, we can do that from in here. We can also use bulk actions in here to pull back all the translations at once. So we don't have to do any repetitive clicks there to get through the content. And that's about it for WordPress. It's a similar workflow, just a case of pushing the relevant content, translating according to the desired workflow, and then pulling that content back. I think we can probably skip on to looking at a bit of a preview of Sitecore here. Let me see. Okay, let's put this in slideshow mode. Okay, so unfortunately this one isn't yet a live demo because this is very hot off the press. This is a new one. But just to show you, it's again a similar kind of idea to what we've seen with the other two platforms, but just to show you how this would work. So at this stage, we would have the option to select the pages from Sitecore that we would want to include for translation. So you can see we've selected a few here. Once we've done that, we move on to a 4-step process where we configure the desired settings for the translation project. So first of all, the content, it's telling us that we have 5 items and that they're valid. And then we go ahead and click next, and this will take us on to the project settings. Quite similar to what we've seen in the other two platforms. We can give the project a name. We can define the workflow stages, AI translation followed by review in this case. We can add a subject and a deadline, any comments we may want to add. And then in the next stage, we go ahead and define the languages that we want to use. So our source language is English in this case, and we've selected Spanish and French as the translatable languages. And then what we will see is a confirmation of everything that we've entered, just so that we can check that's correct before we go ahead and click Confirm Project. And from that point, we'll be in the same project workflow that we've just looked at. We will be able to assign colleagues or freelancers to review that content and then pull back to Sitecore once it's completed. So that's how our CMS integrations work. That's a quick look at how the flow works. Hopefully it's quite simple. But yeah, we're happy to take any questions you might have. Probably we've got some in the chat already that I haven't been looking at.
Thanks so much, Laura. Yeah, that was great. I really appreciate the live demo of both AEM and WordPress in rapid order. And of course, the great thing about Smartcat is whatever your web content management system is, it all falls into one unified content library on the back end. So it's very easy, even for global teams that might have multiple platforms, to use that same library of information to translate, a WordPress site in Southeast Asia using the same assets as the Sitecore site in US and Canada, for example.
Yeah, that's it. My AEM site translated itself because I did a similar PowerPoint yesterday. So, yeah.
Cool. All right. And again, as a reminder, you'll see a Q&A section on your screen for all of the participants on the call. Please feel free to drop any questions you have in there about the integration on different platforms or about Smartcat as a whole. I see one question. I'm going to address one question that I see in chat first. Can requests to in-house teams be integrated into a management system like FlowFit? And I think this is probably in the context of our project management capabilities for translations.
Sorry, can it be integrated to? Didn't quite catch that.
FlowFit. I'm guessing it's a project management system.
Okay. We have an API that supports a wide variety of different integration scenarios. It would probably need a little bit of technical discovery with the platform in question, but all of our platform's functionality is available via API to leverage for any integration requirements. So certainly would be one to talk to our tech team about.
Cool. Question, which versions of Sitecore is the connector compatible with? Dimitri, this might be a question for you.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's 10th version of Sitecore, but if you have some specific version or specific request, please write to us and we'll consider it as well.
Okay, so the question was on Sitecore, XM Cloud, and Content Hub. So we can follow up with more details on that, Craig, as well. And again, as a reminder, if people drop their questions into the Q&A section, it goes into a queue, and it will also be available in the transcript of the recording afterwards. So if you could do me a favor and please use the Q&A section rather than chat for submitting questions, that'll help us do a better job of managing them. Nonetheless, here's a very easy one. When translating to Spanish, is there a setting to choose an informal two-tone versus formal usted?
Absolutely, yeah. One of the beauty with the AI translation engines is that they're very customizable. Yeah, we can support a variety of different tonality requirements as well as formal, informal, and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've got many variants of the Spanish language available as well.
Indeed, yeah.
Does this work for Magento 2? That's a question from Patrick Cunningham.
Magento, where are we with Magento, Dimitri?
Dimitri, can you take that one? Or Patrick, can you clarify what is Magento 2 part of AEM or what platform
Magento
is that?
It's an independent platform, yep. So
As I remember, it's a different CMS by Adobe, so we don't have direct integration with it yet. But if you want us to make it, please, again, submit a request via support or via your manager or in any way you like. Also, I guess you may try using our web translator until we have a direct integration, so it will help you as well, probably.
Yeah, just to add a little bit of flavor there, we also have our website translator, which is more of a platform agnostic kind of solution. So if there are other website translation platforms that we might not yet have a direct integration with, that's another great out-of-the-box option that could work for you as well.
Cool. And we have another webinar recording on that specific topic. If anybody's interested, we can absolutely share a link to that as well. And I see we do have a blog post on Magneto on our website, Magneto Translation Manager connector. So Andrew just shared a link to that. So we will share a link to that with this audience afterwards as well. Okay. So that's the questions in the comments. Now let's move on to the questions section. So one was already asked and answered. What AI engines do you use? Dimitri answered that. We've got various AI and machine translation engines connected to Smartcat, and we select the best match depending on languages. So we offer a multitude of AI translation engines or machine translation engines. We can go deeper into that in a direct conversation as well. There's many variants in all of those. So happy to share more information on that. Let's see. Okay. Open questions. Do you have to train these engines prior to picking which to use for a particular language, or is it just assigned to a specific language type?
The way our intelligent routing algorithm works, it takes account of the content and the language pairs, and it uses a proprietary algorithm on our side to choose which engine would be best for that type of content. That is behavior that can be customized as well, but there are no upfront requirements to be able to use that functionality. It's available from day one as soon as you start using the Smartcat platform.
Sounds great. I see another question in here from Eric Green, which is very similar to the question that we just answered about tone. How do you select a translation language with a conversational tone versus academic or textbook tone?
Yeah, so again, like I just briefly touched upon, one of the benefits of the AI translation engines is how customizable they are. And because you can prompt LLMs in natural language, you can actually instruct as if you were instructing a human linguist in a lot of cases. So we have clients that use that for a wide variety of use cases, including things like, make this target a 5th grade reading level, that sort of thing. So yeah, very flexible and customizable depending on what you need.
Great. And then we've got something from Layla Wright, PRV glossary. Layla, it would be great if you could provide a little more information on what exactly you mean there. What's the question? And then we can come to that. Susie Lau, does Smartcat support a dictionary function for jargons used for B2B website content?
Indeed, yep. We typically would use what we call a glossary for that sort of purpose. So that would encompass any industry-specific terminology you might have, any product names that you want to be translated in a specific way, or potentially also any terms that you don't want to be translated and you'd want to be retained in the source language. What we actually have the ability to do is to tell our AI engines to automatically insert that preferred terminology. So that's just one of the ways that the AI learning and the AI translation can work together just to get that output a little bit closer to your final needs.
Great. Another question. Being AI, how do you handle the prompt creation?
The prompt creation, you have the ability to customize your own prompts. That's something that we can support with, but we do have some clients that are very self-service on that and happily train out and test in their own prompts. We have the ability directly within the platform to set your own custom AI translation presets. You can have any number of those for different purposes, different use cases. So yeah, all available natively in the platform.
Okay. From Craig Burkhart, do we have a mapping of all of the steps required by content authors to send, receive, and publish translation content, which can then be automated? Obviously, this is going to be slightly different for each CMS.
Yeah, our help center has breakdowns of how the process works, of how to use the connectors from the end user perspective, but also we're very committed to onboarding and training here. So once you start using one of our connectors, myself and the team, we would fully onboard you and make sure all end users are trained appropriately as well. So we can give a lot of support for that kind of thing.
Great, thank you. I'm seeing a lot of interest on the call in the actual engines on the back end, the actual Smartcat components. So whether it's the engines, the AI components of our translation platform, glossaries, all of those, we have a very comprehensive and broad and deep support capability there. We also have a lot of content on all of those, whether it's the help center, like Laura mentioned, or prior sessions. So if anybody is interested in getting more information on any of those, just please let us know and we can send you links directly to recordings from prior sessions or assets on our website. So that covers all of the questions that we have in the queue. I would love to see from people with a thumbs up or a reaction what they thought about this session overall, and also if there's a specific topic that you would like us to cover in a future session like this. So if you just want to go ahead and use the reactions button on the bottom of your screen and chat to let us know where else we can have benefit for you, we're happy to do it. Oh, I'm liking this. Lots of thumbs up, lots of hearts. So Laura, as she mentioned, she's been in this business for a long time. She really understands what the technology and the customer needs perspective. So I'm delighted that you, Laura, were able to lead this session for us today. We are at time at this point. As I said, all of the recordings, they'll be available, plus the Q&A and transcript in, let's assume you'll see it by Monday in your inbox. So look for another email from us. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. We love doing these sessions. This is a really great platform. We're so happy that people are able to use it for a broad range of applications, and website translation is just one. And also thank you, Dimitri, for being available and answering the technical questions. I'll leave it to the two of you to say goodbye, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, thanks very much, everybody, for listening. It's been great to be able to present this to you today. And yeah, as Coleman said, please reach out if you've got any more questions, and we're always happy to help.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, guys. Bye.